The story of the Hope first began back in last May when I got onto a flight for Orlando, Florida, and I started writing the first few songs on the album. I was really in a good place mentally, spiritually, going with some friends to a film festival to screen a film that I was a part of. And I wrote the first few songs on that trip, and then I took a couple month break to really readjust and get a different creative headspace and outlook on the project. And I returned to it in the winter, and in the winter, I was actually in a very dark place mentally, spiritually, and it was between the months of December and February that I wrote the album, and I wrote something like 20 songs between those 2 months. And the perspective I got was not from a thematic point. I wasn't thinking about what I wanted to say on the album or theme or anything like that. I was specifically thinking about what was going on in my life and wanting to share that and pour that out just between me and God on paper. And come March of this year, I finally had what I knew was the album somewhere within the 20 songs that I wrote. And I started emailing my producers and calling them up, and then started the collaborative effort of the album. And the album was finally finished late July of this year. The album art was inspired by the story, and the story, though, was really written from track 1 through 14, was the idea that I have so many problems and so many things that I need to work on in my life. I wanted to get married. That has been my ultimate goal. That has been so much of why I've tried to better myself as a person. And I wanted that imagery reflected in the album cover, and how that was my entire perspective, my entire worldview around me is always optimistic. There's always people around me that are telling me to look on the bright side and things like that, and see the brightness of the world around me and see the possibilities. But inward inside of me, I have so much pessimism about myself and what I need to become in order to be the future husband that I will be. If you look at the album art, I'm actually holding a picture frame, and the picture frame represents a family photo. And if you look on the back of the picture frame, you actually see written in small letters, Riggs family photo, which is my last name, and then it says 2020 question mark. And that really symbolically represents where I want to be, and the fact that I'm holding on to the picture frame as if I'm holding on to the dream of one day getting to that. And that's really the story behind the album cover. I chose to write a song like Dear Future Wife because I know I needed a staple song of the album. Some artists, they like to use title tracks where, you have an album called, Tortuga. They'll have one of the first tracks be that to really symbolize the entirety of the album within one song. And I didn't really want to go for that structure specifically, but I wanted to write a song that at the end of the day was what the album was all about. And Dear Future Wife was really, that was the song that was ultimately, this is what I'm hoping for, this is what I'm looking to, which is why it's towards the end of the album, because all the songs leading up to that song is me working through different things, hoping to get to that one dream, which is to have a wife. And Dear Future Wife was a culmination of all these different things that I'm working on, and almost this time capsule type of letter where I wanted to be able to look her in the eye from now, from the vantage point that I don't have her yet, and say, I've been working on all these things, I'm trying, and hopefully I will see you one day, and when I do, I know it will be worth it. So that was really the construction and creation of the song and why I felt like it needed to exist on the album. So Interlude actually does tie into the story of the album, and how it does is it takes place, the story of Interlude really takes place where we're not really in a time frame, but I'm in a place in life with Interlude where I feel like fear really, for the first time, does not have a grip over my life. And the fact that I'm able to let fear go, not that fear essentially is a bad thing, but the simple fact that fear is something we can use, but also we can't be used by fear. Fear needs to be something that we can utilize to better ourselves, but not something we should have completely take over our life. It shouldn't be controlling us. And I wanted to really represent that in a symbolic, metaphoric representation through the imagery that we had in the music video. And how that ties into the album is the fact that now that I'm able to be in a place in life where I can take fear and put fear in its proper place, with that being said, I can now go into the album looking at the problems I have to face and not facing them with fear, but facing them with determination and a game plan on how to better myself in the areas that I'm most weakest. So Interlude doesn't necessarily have, it's not on a specific timeline with the hope, but it was also something that needed to happen beforehand before I could go into the album. So I guess you could say Interlude takes place right before the album begins. My most personal song to write on the album was without a doubt Kids, because as much as I look forward with optimism towards having a wife, I very much look towards having kids one day in a very pessimistic light, because I feel like as much as I could get to a place where I could be a truly good husband, I feel like I could never be a truly good father. And the reason that is because I'm very intimidated by the idea of needing from start to finish raise kids to be competent, God-honoring adults from the very time they're birthed until they get into their 20s or teens. And that idea of needing to do that is so complex, and so many ways I could possibly fail at that. It feels so much more complex than having a wife. And because of that, I feel like I could never live up to being what I need to be as a dad, to where I would justify having kids. So in the song Kids, I very much question, if I can't be that competent father, why should I have kids? And if I decide not to have kids, is that wrong? Is that ungodly? Would I be a failure as a person to not strive for that goal of raising kids? And so that back and forth in the song of wondering, not only can I be a father, but if I question if I can be, should I be a father, very much is this conundrum in my mind. And as much as there was resolution in the song, I still have so many questions relating to that today. So it's an ongoing thought process in my mind, but I do have much more closure on the subject than I did before I began the song. I do have some things in the works now that the hope is behind me. It very much, where I am in life right now very much goes back to the end of Interlude, actually. You know, I feel like there's this door of opportunity ahead of me, and although I have some things planned, like a music video in the works and some singles I'm working on, I very much am looking forward to the unknown and taking that journey and actually taking the step that I actually have struggled with taking in life, which is to be willing to go into the unknown and to be willing to look on the other side of that door and see what's in store for me.